What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Injection of Inspiration, where every single Saturday right here on the show, I, Graham Giason Matthews, inject you with your daily dose of motivational advice, helpful tips, and all that other great positive stuff. Now, I'm sure you've heard today's topic before, that not everything is going to be easy, but it will be worth it in the end. But it is worth repeating because it is true. Now, the topic I want to talk about here today is that. But it doesn't have anything to do with relationships or marriage or kids, which are all difficult, but they are worth it. I can relate to the relationships one, not so much the marriage or the kids one. But I do want to share a story that happened about a year ago. Now, I'm sure I've talked about this before in the video blog that I did on it about a year ago, and I mentioned it very briefly in the Wrestle Rant video that I did about a week and a half ago reviewing Hell in the Cell 2016. But a few weeks ahead of Hell in the Cell 2016, which I was set to be in attendance for at the TD Garden in Boston with Mr. Marceau, RJ, and his girlfriend Molly, we had bought the tickets months in advance, back in like August of 2016. But I'd only found out in early October that Kevin Owens was doing an autograph signing that very same day in Boston. Now, it's not too easy for me to get into Boston. I got to take an Uber or a taxi to the train station, or I did anyway. I don't go to school in Boston anymore, or in the Massachusetts area. I graduated a few months ago. But while I was there, it took an Uber ride or a taxi for me to get to the school, to the train station in the town that I went to school in, and then a train from there into Boston, which took about a half hour, 45 minutes. So I would do that to get into Boston, and then that's only to get to the arena, which is at the TD Garden. Anywhere else in Boston, I would have to take an Uber around or a taxi or whatever. So I found out that Kevin Owens, of all people, who was the then Universal Champion, was going to be doing an autograph signing in Boston that same Sunday. It was just going to be at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and you had to be among the first like 300 people. It was very limited because you had to buy the WWE Encyclopedia, like the third installment or the third edition, whatever it was, the third edition of the Encyclopedia, in order to meet KO. So you had to get there pretty damn early, which means I had to leave pretty damn early, and I had to wake up around like 5:45, take a quick shower, eat real quick, take an Uber from there to the train station, take a train into Boston, then another Uber from the train station in Boston over to the bookstore, which I think was a Barnes & Noble. But I was willing to do it because I knew it was Kevin Owens, and I really, really wanted to meet Kevin Owens, and I had no idea when my next opportunity would be in order to meet him. So I'm like, I gotta fucking do this. I'm already going to Hell in the Cell. I'll be in the city anyway for the pay-per-view. Even though it's later that night, maybe I could just hang around with RJ or whatever, because I told him about it and he said he was going. Up until the night before, when he texted me very late at night and I was already running late. So before I even get to what RJ said in his text, I was ready to go to bed early because I had to wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to get up, get ready, take off, and whatnot, like I talked about earlier. So as I was getting ready for bed, I was just about to hang up on my girlfriend when my roommate came back, who I've mentioned before, I'm sure, with a girl that he wanted to have sex with or sleep with, whatever. And in the past, and which I should have done, I gave him the time. In any other instance, I'd probably give him the room for a little while, take off, and then come back. But at this point, it's fucking midnight. And he had done this to me after the fact as well, like later on in that year, like earlier this year, like earlier on in 2017, I said, no, fuck no, I'm going to bed. I'm fucking tired. Fuck you. Maybe if it's like 8, 9 o'clock, I understand. If it's midnight, 1 o'clock, and you want me to leave, fuck you, go back to her room. That's not my problem. On this instance, I let him have the room. I shouldn't have, but I did. Even though I had to get up super, super early, and it was midnight, and I had to wake up in like 6 hours. So I gave him the room, and I later found out from what he told me, he didn't even have sex with her. He didn't even get what he wanted. Because I guess she was feeling sick and he let her go and he didn't want her to get sick all over the room or whatever, and she just wasn't into it. So he was like, okay, get out of here. So he let her go, and I thought he came back with the same girl later on that night. It was a different girl that he came back with. So I don't know what the fuck he was doing that night. And this guy is no steel. Don't get me wrong, he's a nice guy, but he's by no means like fucking, I don't know, the most suave guy out there, the most suave guy out there. The biggest catch there is. So he brought back some other chick by some circumstance, by some miracle in his book anyway. He brought her back while I was sleeping around 1 o'clock, woke me up, and I don't think they did anything bad. He said they didn't. I'm pretty sure I heard something. They weren't too loud, otherwise they would have definitely noticed, but I'm pretty sure they were doing something. They kept me up because they were talking for like 2-3 hours. And by that point, it was like 5 o'clock when they finally shut the fuck up. And when I finally looked at my watch or my clock or whatever, and I should have said something then too to tell them to shut the fuck up, I didn't. So I had to get up, to go to the pay-per-view, to go to Boston, rather, to head out into the train. And I was like, shit. And I was like, I had a half hour left. I just listened to one of Solid Monster Sounds Off podcasts for like a half hour. And then I just got up and I went off. And I had literally like an hour of sleep. And I was going to be out all day, going from the autograph signing to staying in Boston until like midnight when I had to take the train home from Boston back to where my school was. So it was going to be a long day after the pay-per-view got out. But I was willing to do it. Now, that's not even taking into consideration that while I was waiting for my roommate to get the fuck out of the room, when I gave him the room for a couple minutes earlier on, like right before I went to sleep and before he kept me up all fucking night, he had texted me. RJ had texted me saying, hey, won't be able to make it. They had stayed out pretty late that night or something like that, and it was going to be way too early. Despite the fact that I was getting up early, I was getting up even earlier than he was to make it there, but whatever. So I said, fuck it, and I'm going to go by myself. So if you're independent, don't feel like you have to go with someone. You have to do everything with someone. You can do things by yourself. You're very much capable of going out in the world and achieving things on your own. Don't think that it's embarrassing or you feel bad or you're insecure, whatever the fuck. Don't feel self-conscious, okay? Just get over it and do things by yourself. No one really gives a shit. That's what I did. Just because RJ said he wasn't going, and despite the fact that I wasn't getting any sleep the night prior, I was still fucking making it to this Kevin Owens autograph signing if that was the last thing that I did. So I woke up super early after only an hour of sleep, no one picking me up, getting my own ride there. Again, everything seemed to go smoothly. Took an Uber from my school to the train station, took a train into Boston, and another Uber at like 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, from there to the bookstore. And I thought I was late. I ran into the bookstore, the Barnes & Noble. They had barely just gotten started. I thought people would be lining, out the door. There'd be a line out the door for Kevin Owens, but he wasn't even there yet. The autograph signing wouldn't even start for another 2.5 hours. So for like 2.5 hours, I sat there reading my book, listening to the podcast, waiting for KO. Finally got to meet him. It was an awesome experience. It wasn't easy. I was super tired, and I did it all by myself, but it was super worth it. Now, the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view that night that I went to wasn't that great, but the whole day was very enjoyable. I met up with RJ later on. We went to the pay-per-view together, and it was great. But was it worth it? Absolutely. I mean, waking up that early and being super fucking tired, it was very much worth it for an awesome experience that I can talk about forever, including in this episode. Now, when I got back at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, I didn't have to go to my internship the next day. He told me I could work out of my dorm room, which I got to do more often than not, which I shouldn't have had to, but I did, which was really cool of them. I was able to. But anyway, so I got back to my dorm room knowing that I had tomorrow off. He's like, hey, do you still want to go into Salem tomorrow to celebrate Halloween? And the chick was still fucking there. I'm like, fuck you, dude. I'm sleeping. Go to, leave me alone. I'm not going with you. Do you not understand that I had to wake up super early today and I just came back at like 1 o'clock in the morning and I was also up all of last night because of you? Like, fuck you. I'm not going with you to Salem tomorrow. I didn't say fuck you, but I was pretty like adamant that I wasn't leaving and that I was tired and I had a long day. Very, very, very long day. But again, the point of the matter being that it was worth it. And I can think of 10 times, 10 more examples that are way more extreme than that. Just waking up early and getting on a train. Ooh, how extreme. It really isn't. My story's pretty tame. But the point of the matter is, and that way I wanted to use that as an example because we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that incident, of that experience. But it's always going to be worth it. No matter how difficult it is, if you know it's worth it, go through with it. And you may regret it now, like, oh, why did I do that? But in the long run, you'll be very happy that you did it. So keep that in mind as you go along in the journey that is life. And here is hoping that little tidbit of a lesson, that tidbit of advice can help you at some point or another. So anyway, guys, thank you for checking out the video. As always, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share, and subscribe for more daily content. I'll be back next Saturday with another all-new episode of Injection of Inspiration. Until then, guys, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.